Bruce Ratner served as Consumer Affairs Commissioner under former Mayor Ed Koch and then became a real estate developer, but his current passion, changing the way the medical profession deals with cancer, may be an outgrowth of his work going after corrupt merchants and repairmen. He's written a book, Early Detection, Catching Cancer When It's Curable. So here's the deal. When you were Consumer Affairs Commissioner, you had an intense focus on going after the bad guys, the merchants, the alarm salesmen, all kinds of bad guys. Right. Now you've got the same laser focus on the medical profession. You want to change the way they deal with cancer. Why?
I guess I just have always been an advocate. I've always been on the progressive side for all my life, and did a lot of science work, but the real issue is it gets me upset and angry at the fact that we can do something about curing cancer and making people not as sick and saving families if we catch cancer early. And I care a lot about that, just as I cared about people being ripped off. We did hair dyes when I was Consumer Affairs Commissioner and their contribution to cancer. So I care a lot about this subject. And one reason is I had a brother who died 8 years ago, who I was very close with. But the truth of it is, every one of us has had to deal with cancer, whether it be a mother, a father, a brother, a sister, or maybe even awful, a child, an uncle. So this is around us all the time, and I guess I'm angry a little bit, more than a little bit. I'm angry that there's a way in which we can actually change a lot of things, both disparities. We can make sure that people get screened, that they don't get bad cancers, or that they get caught early and they save their lives, and yet that's not where we spend our money as a country, or in any kind of way. We don't spend it on early detection of cancer. And it's easy and it's there. This is an optimistic book. It says we can do it and we can do it. And so my life's going to be about an initiative.
You know, but as I read your book, I was moved by the loss that you suffered. Not only your brother, your grandmother, your sister-in-law, your mother, they all had various kinds of cancer. And as you tell their stories, they all the cancers were all caught in the late stages.
That's correct.
And so I wonder what effect that had on your desire to change that and to try to get the medical profession to change and focus on early detection.
Well, what happened was, when I saw my brother got sick, I've been on the Sloan Kettering board for a couple decades, and I always thought that cancer was curable no matter what stage it was in. Then my brother gets metastatic cancer, actually too late, and I thought there'd be drugs that could do something, and then I realized that that's not the case. If you don't catch it early, you're not likely to live if you catch it in stage 4. And so that really got me started, and that was 8 years ago. And I focused on it, and I said, something's really wrong. And that's really what did it.
But yet you seem to say in the book that the medical profession spends its money, its research dollars on treating late-stage cancers. And most cancers, because there are no early detection tests, it's stage 4.
Right, correct.
Which gives you few options.
Very few options.
So how do you get the medical profession to go from this way to going this way?
So the book. I want to sell as many books as possible, of course, to get the word out. But the real purpose of it is to be a platform. I really want to spend time on creating initiatives, which I've done already, to try and get a model that really works to screen for some of these cancers. For lung cancer, which is the low-hanging fruit, 25% of all cancer deaths are lung cancer. They're found primarily in stage 4. You have a 10% chance of dying. So it's a test that works, but only 5% of the people who should be taking that test take that test.
How come?
There's a number of reasons. First of all, we have a medical profession, which I was called, there are naysayers all over the place. And so when you come up with a new test, it takes a long time for the doctors to accept it. The pap smear took 50 years to be accepted and actually used regularly. So the problem is, one, you have people who don't believe in lung cancer screening. Second,
are you saying doctors don't believe in lung cancer screening?
They say too many false positives, which is just not the case. They don't really know. There is an answer. There are not that many false positives, but they don't know that. So there's no, mass media is the key way to get to people on screening, for anti-smoking, for vaccines. There's no mass media spent by our government on lung cancer screening.
But, you know, one of the things you talk about in your book is that money should be spent on developing easy tests, like blood tests, that would help people to be screened. Is that reality? I mean, can you develop blood tests for the myriad of cancers that exist in the world, or is there some that they should focus on?
So thank you for that question. That's a very important question. The answer is yes. For the first time, there's money going into early detection. It's private capital for this blood test at a company called Grail, and it makes a test which is still in the process of being perfected, but is being used, which will detect up to 50 cancers. And it's called Grail. The test is called Gallery. It's available. Unfortunately, it's not covered yet. It's going to be a few more years, but that is the future. That's why I say it's an optimistic book. If we can do that, that will change everything. Imagine getting a blood test, seeing if you have cancer, and then treating it early.
But the question is that a test for rich people?
That's the right question. The answer is, right now, yes. But the book is heavily about disparities, as you know.
I know that.
And so what has to happen is, there are bills in Congress right now to cover that test. That's got to happen. There has to be some more testing done before it's perfected. But it will eventually get covered by Medicare, Medicaid, and commercial insurance. And that probably 4 or 5 years off. But it has to be covered, because the other thing, we don't want to create more disparities. And if we don't get it covered by Medicare, Medicaid, then we haven't really done our job.
But how are you going to get the government to do that? Right now, you have Republicans in Congress that want to cut back on Medicaid and Medicare. So how are you going to do that when there's no appetite for even funding it now in Washington?
Here's the amazing thing. The bill I just described, included in Medicare and Medicaid, which will take a while to pass, is supported by Republicans and Democrats. Why? Cancer hits Republicans and Democrats. It hits all of us. And so the congressmen, senators care a lot about cancer, and if this test proves out to what we think it is, I think it will get passed. It's a different subject. It's not something like, do we give aid here or do we give aid here? And where does the money come from? The answer is Medicare, Medicaid do get funded by the government. The test would not be a major part of the health care cost. And I think you will absolutely, the Congress people, I could make a list of the number of congressmen and senators who are interested in cancer. It's gigantic because everyone's been affected.
But another thing that you touch on in the book, which hits a chord, is the fact that there's a disparity in services, and that people in low-income or minority communities either don't have access to these tests and services, or haven't had the education to realize that they should get these tests.
Thank you for asking that. Here's a fact. Women who are white, Caucasian, get the same incidence of cancer as black women do. But the mortality rate is 40% higher for African American women. 50% of low-income individuals who get diagnosed with cancer in Washington, D.C. don't follow up. So what do we do about that? There's a whole chapter on what's called patient navigators. It's a Band-Aid. There are social disparities that we can't do a lot about quickly, but patient navigators guide someone through the system. They make sure to call before a test is going so that people show up. They help them find the doctors. They explain everything to them. And we need to increase the number of patient navigators. There was just a change. Now Medicare and Medicaid cover patient navigators. That is the Band-Aid that fixes that disparity.
We're going to run out of time, but I want to say that your book is available on June 11th on bookstores around the country.
Correct, yeah.
And we're going to have to leave it there for now, but we'll be right back.
I thank you very, very much. Great.